Well, let's now bring in someone who is being directly impacted, and that is the president of the Ford Motor Company Africa, Neale Hill. Of course, the mayor mentioned a number of motor companies. Neale Hill, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you were listening in to what the mayor had to say. I wonder if you could start by just telling us about the factories that you have in the area and how they've been impacted. Is this the Silverton plant?
Good evening, Sally. And yes, the mayor did mention the fact that the Waterloo industrial area has been affected, and that, of course, is where Ford Motor Company's Silverton assembly operations are located. The challenging piece of that is that right adjacent to the Ford facilities, of course, is our Tshwane Special Economic Zone, which houses over 15 of our direct suppliers who have all been affected as well. So as it stands right now, we've lost a full day of production today, and by all accounts, and looking at the without a very clear line of sight as to when power is going to be supplied, it's very difficult to anticipate when we are going to be able to resume manufacturing capacity as we go forward.
So, of course, every big company and small company and household has had to deal with load shedding, and most big companies have some sort of backout. Is it not as simple as saying, look, we're just going to have to run the Jenny 24/7, or is that just not feasible?
I wish it were that simple, Sally, unfortunately. And we've got 13.5 megawatts of solar power on our facility. That covers about a quarter of our energy requirements. The big problem is that we've got some very high draw units and equipment that we use in the manufacturing process. And as part of the refurbishment that we did of the plant, we instituted a whole new press line, which is a 130-ton press line to press out body panels. And then, of course, we've got the paint shop where we have ovens that run at a constant temperature to cure the paint on our vehicles. And those being very high draw units, it's infeasible, unfortunately, to try and run that off a generator or even solar backup at this stage.
So you said one full day of production lost. Am I right then in assuming that until this power is fully restored, you're just going to have to wait?
That's 100% the story that we're faced with. And, by all accounts, is, even if we get a temporary backfeed, a power supply coming into the plant, we're not 100% sure of the stability of that feed. So that will also bring into question whether we can actually start the process. And then the special economic zone is on a different feed line, so they would also take some time. And, we've got ripple effects throughout our entire supply base that are spread across the country where they are producing, but ultimately it gets to the point where they become log-jammed on stock in terms of all the parts that we need to assemble vehicles. So ultimately they're going to end up being shut down, even though they're not in the Tshwane area. And, it's going to take us probably until the middle part of next week, we anticipate, to fully resume, production. And that's on the basis that we got a steady power supply tomorrow. So this could impact us, through until well into next week.
So even if power is restored tomorrow, which is highly unlikely, the knock-on will take you into next week. Talk to me about what a full day of production loss actually means in RAN terms, but also in terms of vehicles rolling off the assembly line.
Well, just as a starting point, Sally, a normal day's production sees 720 Ford Rangers and VW Amaroks rolling off our production line. And, if you take an average value, something in the order of $35,000 to $40,000 a vehicle, you start to estimate in terms of dollar terms what that impact is for us on a daily basis. And not to mention the impact on the employee base, not only the 5,500 workers that we have directly employed at Ford Motor Company, but we have 60,000 people in the value chain as well that have all had to be stood down. So you can see the magnitude of the economic loss that we're facing and the revenue that's going to be lost across the organisation.
I would imagine that, you've already had to deal with the impact of load shedding. This is just quite a devastating blow. Are there discussions within Ford about maybe withdrawing from South Africa? I know you've got, 100 years history in this country, I think it is. Is that at all something that would be on the line?
Sally, we're very committed as a company to South Africa, and having just made a $1 billion investment over the last couple of years for the refurbishment and the complete upgrade of our line. We're certainly not of the view that South Africa is a base that we would be exiting. However, I think the key element is that South Africa is becoming harder and harder to do business in particular when you look at the challenges that we're facing, and load shedding is one aspect that you've mentioned. Then on top of that, you've got to add in the port and rail infrastructure the challenges that we deal with there. And it does become difficult in terms of continuing to sell South Africa as an investment destination. And fortunately, we're at the point that we have made the investment. So, we're here to stay. But, one's got to question the difficulty that it is in terms of securing future big investment. And certainly companies that would be looking at South Africa as an investment destination would be looking at all of these different elements and thinking long and hard about whether this is the place on the African continent that one does want to invest or not.
Yeah, and that's a troubling thought indeed. Talk to me about delays and what you're telling your clients, both sort of locally and internationally. I mean, it's quite hard because we don't know when power is going to be restored.
Fortunately, Sally, we've got some stock units that, we've got some units that are already in the pipeline that are busy making their way out to our dealer network in South Africa. And then also to our export, destinations, of which we export to over 100 markets. Naturally, we very quickly inform the entire system of the challenges. And, as soon as we get a timeline that looks like it's going to be stable production, we will assess what the catchback plan looks like. Our challenge is that we work 3 shifts a day for 5 days a week. So, we have limited capacity just in terms of available man hours to catch back to, a week or 2 weeks of lost production. So this is probably going to live with us for the next couple of months, probably through until the end of May, even June, if we've got the ability to catch back. And that is also looking at the supply base's ability to support our production demand that, at the levels that we're talking about. So, this is going to probably take us the better part of, a couple of months to catch back if we can, smoothly, if not going well into the third quarter.
Gosh, that's devastating news. And as you say, every day lost is 720 vehicles that could have been sold. But also, as you said earlier, it's some of your direct suppliers also impacted by this outage and the special economic zone. So it really is very dire indeed. Thank you so much for chatting to us this evening, and good luck. That, of course, is the Ford Motor Company Africa head, Neale Hill, speaking to us about the impact of the Tshwane outage on their factory.